Have you ever wondered why so many women begin to grow distant from their husbands as they get older? This question creates curiosity, but for many couples who have been together for decades, it also sparks worry and even fear. The woman who once adored her husband may now seem cold, frustrated, or resentful. In this discussion, we will uncover 7 powerful reasons behind this shift. These reasons are rarely spoken about, yet they silently shape countless marriages. By understanding them, couples can find a way to rebuild closeness before it is too late. The first major reason is emotional neglect. In the early years of marriage, couples often spend hours talking, laughing, and sharing their dreams. But as time passes, conversations fade and routines take over. What may feel like comfort to a husband can feel like loneliness to a wife. Many women carry the responsibility of maintaining emotional intimacy, and when that effort is not returned, they begin to feel invisible. A husband may believe that providing financially or simply being present in the home is enough. But for a wife, the absence of listening, empathy, and genuine affection leaves a painful emptiness. Over time, this quiet void turns into resentment. Take Helen's example. At 72, she remembered how much she once loved her husband's humor and work ethic. But as the years went on, he spent most evenings in front of the television, believing that his presence was enough. She longed for conversation and closeness, but her unmet needs hardened into bitterness. This shows that love is not just about sharing a roof, it is about nurturing a steady flow of connection. The good news is that awareness can heal. Husbands who take time to listen, ask thoughtful questions, or even hold their wife's hand during a quiet evening can begin to restore what was lost. Resentment grows in silence, but healing begins with small, intentional acts of attention. The second reason women often resent their husbands with age is the unequal burden of responsibility. In many marriages, especially those formed in traditional times, wives carried the full weight of managing the home, children, and emotional labor while husbands focused mainly on work outside. Even as times changed, many women continued to bear this heavy load. Decades of cooking, cleaning, organizing, and remembering every detail can leave them feeling unappreciated. Husbands may believe this labor is just part of life, but to a wife, it feels like her efforts are invisible. Over time, this imbalance creates deep frustration and resentment, turning what should be a partnership into a one-sided struggle. Many husbands worked hard to provide financially, but for wives, the imbalance of daily burdens is often impossible to ignore. By the time a woman reaches her 70s, what once felt like duty can feel like decades of unpaid, unappreciated labor. Take the story of Carol, age 74, who spent most of her married life running the household alone. Even after retiring from her part-time job, she was still expected to cook every meal and do the laundry while her husband relaxed in his chair. For years she suppressed her frustration, convincing herself this was simply the way things were. But as she grew older, that quiet frustration hardened into anger. She even admitted to a close friend that she sometimes felt more like a servant than a partner. This resentment often deepens when health issues appear. A wife who spent her life caring for her husband, her children, and even elderly parents may suddenly realize there was little reciprocity. When her own health begins to decline, she may fear that no one will care for her the way she cared for others. This sense of unfairness cuts deep, fueling hostility toward her husband. The real issue is not just chores or duties, it is about value and respect. When one partner feels their lifelong efforts have been overlooked, love begins to erode. Husbands who learn to share responsibilities, acknowledge sacrifices, and actively support their wives in later years can begin to soften decades of imbalance. Resentment thrives in silence and inequality, but gratitude and fairness can restore dignity for both sides. Now let's move forward to the third reason, a lack of appreciation for sacrifices made over time. One of the most painful truths for many women is the feeling that their sacrifices were never truly recognized. Countless wives have given up career ambitions, personal hobbies, or close friendships to prioritize their families. At the time, those decisions may have felt necessary, even noble. But without gratitude, the weight of those sacrifices can leave a deep scar. People can endure hardship when they feel valued, but when their effort is taken for granted, it slowly transforms into bitterness. Consider Nancy, now 80 years old. In her youth, she dreamed of becoming an art teacher, but she set that dream aside to raise 4 children. She dedicated her life to supporting her husband's career, always putting his needs before her own. Yet when she reached retirement age, she realized he had never once thanked her for the sacrifices she made. Instead, he spoke only of his own accomplishments. By then, the silence around her contributions had become unbearable. This highlights a universal truth: every human being longs for validation. Women, like men, want their efforts acknowledged. A few sincere words of gratitude, a moment of recognition, or even a simple expression of admiration can transform years of sacrifice into pride instead of regret. Without it, unspoken appreciation slowly erodes love. But when husbands take time to reflect on all their wives have given up and openly express thanks, the entire emotional climate of a marriage can shift. Unacknowledged effort weakens love, but gratitude spoken aloud makes it stronger. Now let's move to reason number 4, the breakdown of communication. One of the most powerful reasons women begin to resent their husbands with age is the slow erosion of meaningful conversation. In the early years, couples often share dreams, talk through challenges, and plan their future together. But as time passes, dialogue can shrink to nothing more than daily logistics: what's for dinner, who will pay the bills, or what errands need to be done. What disappears are the deeper exchanges that nourish intimacy. Psychologically, this silence creates distance. Women in particular crave emotional dialogue, and when it is replaced by routine chatter or long stretches of quiet, they begin to feel unseen. Husbands may think that silence equals comfort, but to their wives, it often feels like abandonment. Take Patricia, age 75, as an example. She once cherished long car rides with her husband, filled with laughter and stories. But over time, those drives became marked by silence. He thought the quiet was peaceful, but she felt invisible. When she tried to spark conversation, he would respond with short answers, or none at all. The absence of dialogue slowly eroded the closeness she once treasured. This lack of communication also shows up in conflict resolution. Many couples stop addressing problems altogether, either because they are tired of arguing, or because one partner shuts down. But ignoring issues doesn't solve them. It buries them, allowing resentment to grow stronger. A wife who feels unheard will eventually express that pain through anger, withdrawal, or criticism. The way forward requires effort. Even small conversations about feelings, memories, or hopes for the future can rebuild trust. A husband who listens with patience and speaks with honesty can reignite the warmth of connection. Resentment grows strongest in silence, but healing begins the moment words return. Now let's look at reason number 5, the decline in physical intimacy. This is another major source of resentment in long-term marriages. Over the years, health challenges, stress, and even simple complacency can reduce affection, touch, and closeness. For many women, this loss is not only about romance, it is about feeling desired, valued, and connected. When intimacy fades without open conversation, it often feels like rejection. Psychologically, humans are wired to need physical closeness. A hug, a kiss, or even a gentle touch on the hand releases hormones that foster bonding and trust. When these small gestures disappear, the absence is deeply felt. Consider Janet, age 68. She noticed that her husband no longer reached for her hand in public or gave her a goodnight kiss. At first, she dismissed it as a natural part of aging. But as months turned into years, the silence of touch became painful. She began to feel invisible, as though she no longer mattered. That lack of physical connection left her not only lonely, but resentful. The truth is, intimacy in marriage is not just about passion, it is about maintaining the bond that tells each partner, "You still matter to me." She once confided to a friend that the emptiness of their physical life made her feel more like a roommate than a wife. Her frustration slowly transformed into bitterness. Even though she still cared for her husband deeply, this truth highlights that intimacy is not only about what happens in the bedroom. Small acts of affection, holding hands, sitting close on the couch, or offering a warm hug, carry immense weight. Without them, love can begin to feel cold and mechanical. A wife who feels starved of touch often carries resentment that words alone cannot repair. The good news is that this cycle can be broken. Husbands who make the intentional choice to show affection, even through simple daily gestures, can rebuild the closeness their wives long for. Intimacy may change with age, but its importance never fades. Love is not only spoken, it is felt through presence, touch, and tender care. Now we come to reason number 6, growing differences in lifestyle and interests. As couples age, another source of resentment is the widening gap between how they want to live. In the early years, shared goals, raising children, paying the mortgage, building careers, kept couples aligned. But once those responsibilities fade, differences that once seemed small can turn into daily frustrations. A husband who prefers long afternoons in front of the television may clash with a wife who longs for travel, hobbies, or social gatherings. Psychologically, these differences create a sense of isolation. Many women desire companionship in later life, a partner willing to explore new activities or at least share in meaningful routines. When husbands resist change or remain fixed in their habits, wives often feel abandoned emotionally, even while living under the same roof. The message they receive is that their needs for connection and growth no longer matter. Consider Barbara, age 77, who loved gardening and attending community events. Her husband, however, preferred to stay home, rarely engaging beyond his recliner. For years she invited him to join her, but he declined, insisting he was content. Eventually, her disappointment turned into resentment. She admitted that it sometimes felt as though she was living two separate lives, hers filled with activity, his filled with inertia. Lifestyle differences become even sharper when health or mobility changes appear. If one partner neglects self-care while the other works hard to stay active, the imbalance can create frustration and even contempt. A wife who invests in staying healthy may resent a husband who refuses to meet her halfway. The deeper truth is that shared experiences are vital for sustaining emotional bonds. When couples stop creating new memories together, their relationship risks becoming stagnant. Women often resent husbands who refuse to evolve because it signals a lack of investment in the life they still hope to live. Yet this gap can be bridged. Husbands who step out of their comfort zone, taking a walk, attending a community event, or showing interest in their wife's hobbies, can reignite a sense of partnership. Resentment grows when differences divide, but love deepens when effort closes the gap. Finally, let's turn to reason number 7. Unresolved conflicts from the past. One of the heaviest burdens that women carry into their later years is the weight of old arguments and wounds that were never truly addressed. Disputes over money, family, trust, or other painful issues may fade from daily conversation, but they rarely disappear from memory. Small daily habits can pile up over the years. When apologies are never made and forgiveness is never sought, the wounds do not vanish. They simply sink deeper, resurfacing as bitterness later in life. Psychologically, unresolved conflict lingers because the mind cannot let go of unfinished business. A wife may recall a hurtful comment made decades ago, or a betrayal that was never fully repaired. Even if daily life looks calm, the memory of those moments simmers beneath the surface. As she grows older, with more time to reflect, those old wounds can feel fresher than ever, fueling resentment that even surprises her. Take Evelyn, now 80 years old. She still remembers the day her husband dismissed her dream of returning to school in her 40s. At the time, she buried her disappointment and carried on with family life. But in her later years, that single moment grew into a symbol of all the times she felt dismissed or unheard. While her husband barely remembered the conversation, to Evelyn it became a heavy stone she could never put down. This reminds us that time alone does not heal all wounds. Real healing requires honesty, apology, and a willingness to listen. When conflicts are brushed aside, they fester, turning love into quiet hostility. For many women, resentment in later life is not about today's disagreements, but about yesterday's battles that were never resolved. The good news is that it is never too late to begin repair. Couples who revisit old hurts with compassion and humility can ease the weight of years. Even small acknowledgments of past mistakes can bring powerful relief. Resentment grows strongest in silence and denial, but healing begins the moment truth is faced with courage and care. Now, some final thoughts. As we close, take a moment to reflect on the 7 reasons we've explored. Did one of them strike a chord with you? Was it the silence of emotional neglect, the burden of unequal responsibilities, the loss of intimacy, or perhaps the sting of old conflicts that were never healed? Each of these truths can feel heavy, but they also carry a message of hope. Awareness is the first step toward change. Recognizing the hidden roots of resentment can open the door to healing and renewed connection. Marriage is not defined only by the number of years spent under one roof. It is shaped by the daily choices to listen, to appreciate, to share burdens, to show affection, and to speak honestly. When these choices fade, resentment grows. But when they are renewed, even later in life, love can take root again in surprising ways. If you see yourself in these truths, remember that it is never too late to begin again. A single gesture of gratitude, a heartfelt apology, or even a quiet evening of truly listening can shift the direction of a marriage. Women do not grow distant from their husbands without reason. They long to be seen, valued, and cherished. When those needs are met, resentment softens into companionship, and companionship blooms once more into love. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts inspire and motivate us to keep creating content that matters. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue to inform and inspire. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.